Hi everybody, I'm here, Andrea here with Francesco.
Hi guys.
And well, we are going through our 2021, which was an interesting year. We had the opportunity to develop new material, to study new markets, not always with good results, and you will see what I mean, at least from my side. Francesco is smiling because he knows his situation was a bit different, but in any case, I just wanted to say, I was mentioning this to Francesco, I think yesterday, during 2021, but not only, I probably dedicated more attention to development rather than regularity and common sense in my trading. I mean, I developed a method of trading, I applied it, I've been applying it for years, but this year I dedicated more attention to new experiments. And I did it with real money, of course, as I usually do. I will explain you why. But I think that if I had done things properly, the situation would have been different. But let me show you the results so that we better understand what I mean. So guys, this is, as said, our 2021. And the first chart here shows the result from Interactive Brokers, where I trade, of my line. The blue line, the bad one here, is my equity line, which ended up with about 16%. So it's not bad after all, but obviously you see the behavior compared to two benchmarks I just put here, the SPX and a Vanguard World Index. The comparison obviously shows how things went bad. In next slide, you also see some numbers about the results, and you can see the drawdown of about 24%, which obviously is not what we normally look for. What happened actually in the first part of the year, you've seen it was a disaster, and I was experimenting, as I mentioned, a new trading system on US small caps. I developed this not with multi-charts, but with AmiBroker because I had to use Norgate data to avoid the survivorship bias problem. And I had a survivorship bias-free database. And then I immediately decided to apply the system on my account because it showed to be very promising. And it was. Actually, I think it has been biased by a great 2020. The system works overall, but in 2020 it did really well. So I decided to start immediately with real money. I always want to test with real money what I develop, because only when you go market, you really know if things look well or not, especially on small caps where we might encounter problems of liquidity in the market. So, well, the result is here in front of you, and it was a disaster. Obviously, at the end of April, more or less, I decided to stop using this system. It was a psychological stop, not a technical stop, let's say, okay? It was psychological. After printing this, I had a look at the performance of the system afterwards, and I must admit that it did well. It recovered, and it ended up with a great December 2021, but not with my money in the market. Had I traded the right way, the normal way, you see, starting May, my performance would have been absolutely better in general terms, and better also compared to the benchmark. Now, I don't show this to show how good I am. I just show that applying a regular approach would have been beneficial for my trading, but my will to experiment has driven me in this case, wrong direction. But in any case, the year was positive, and I'm happy after all. Experiments are not bad anyway, because somebody got great results from his experiments. You remember last year I mentioned that Francesco did much better than me, And this year, he did even better. So I really started to hate him. Francesco, I leave it to you to show your performance.
Okay, Andrea. Experimenting means, in a certain sense, risks, because you have to face new kind of trading, new markets. It's difficult to try to figure it out how will be in real a promising system. So in my case, this was the year of the cryptocurrencies, but we will look at after this classical account in which I trade mainly options, stocks with asset allocation, and trading systems, of course. And I had a good performance, about 33% this year, with a 12% drawdown, if I remember correctly. And I experimented a drawdown in the same period, more or less, of Andrea, here, when an option strategy stopped working. It is not the Iron Shark, it is another one I used with success in the previous year, and this year is not so good for this kind of short-term trading, because it's a short-term option strategy. Anyway, I stopped trading this strategy, and I try to use it in a more opportunistic way. So at the end, I was able to recover from the drawdown, and the curve from starting from February to the end of the year was quite good, And we can see also some metrics, 12% drawdown, as I said. And if you look at the performance in compared to volatility, probably the SPX did better than me, even if the total return was lower. But it's quite difficult to beat the benchmark during a so good year like 2021. So it is quite normal, but I have to say I'm quite happy, because all the metrics of my account are inside my parameters. So as I usually say, I try to obtain a sort of 20% of return.
This evil guy mentioning 20% because I did worse. I will remember this, Francesco.
Yeah, I usually try to obtain 17%, Okay. And the same goes for the drawdown, because I think ratio 1-to-1 between net profit and max drawdown is quite good. Okay, it's difficult to keep the drawdown much lower than the annual result, but this year happened, so I'm quite happy.
Just to mention one thing, you mentioned it's difficult to beat the benchmark in such a good year, and this is true. When the benchmark, the SPX stock market, is doing great, it's hard with my approach, Francesco's approach, or any approach, in my opinion, to beat it. What is good with our systematic approach is when things go really bad. In that case, normally we do much better than the benchmark. After all, I would say we make money while benchmark loses money. This is important, in my opinion.
Yes, I totally agree. And as I said, this was the cryptocurrencies year. So I started trading also because of some technical issues with Interactive Broker during the first month of the year. And I started trading on Binance, future on cryptocurrencies. And this is the result of my whole portfolio in red during 2021 until November, because Interactive stopped the...
Binance, not Interactive.
Sorry, Binance stopped the possibility for Italian traders to trade futures. So I needed to stop trading. I was forced to stop trading, and now I needed to rebuild my portfolio for the spot market, which is quite different, without using leverage. I need to put more money in my account, and also maybe is necessary to choose with more attention which systems I'm going to trade for the next month, because I can't afford to maintain all my system active. So Titan in this case could be a good solution. Anyway, coming back to performance, we can see 227% return with a 30% drawdown, which is quite a big drawdown, but you know, I preferred to using leverage to keep my account on Binance Exchange the lower as possible. So also because, you know, cryptocurrency exchange are, in my opinion, not so safe as a classical broker like Interactive. So this the purpose of this experiment was to obtain good result using leverage. Okay. But anyway, the crypto market is wonderful also for because you can choose the leverage you can use, because it's there is so much granularity, like let's say Forex. So you can choose you can adapt your portfolio to the desired risk return ratio, no? And the red line is the whole portfolio. The green line is the equity line of all the systems that works on Ethereum. Then we have Bitcoin in yellow, and the other one is the equity line on altcoin, which I started trading during April. Okay, they didn't know so well, but in a certain way they allowed me to diversify my portfolio. And the same goes for the drawdown. The red line is the drawdown of the portfolio, and the other equity line are the drawdowns of the trading systems on each of these cryptocurrencies. And you can see that in many cases, the drawdown of the portfolio is lower than the drawdown of let's say Bitcoin in this case, or altcoin in this one. So diversifying can help to mitigate the volatility of the whole portfolio. And this is the reason why I decided to trade also other cryptos, even if the results are quite clear that Ethereum was the best candidate for algorithmic trading right now. And we can see here the result of the portfolio compared to a benchmark, which is obviously Bitcoin, which is the most capitalized cryptocurrency. And you can see that a classical buy and hold strategy had a drawdown about 50% during 2021, while my portfolio was able to keep the drawdown on a max 30% drawdown, and also did much better than the benchmark. So I think that trading systems are a good solution, or a different solution, let's say, compared to buy and hold. And I personally prefer to keep the risk under control, and also because 80% drawdown, like in 2017 on Bitcoin, is too much for me to afford it. So I think the trading system can be an answer, a solution to keep your account more in line with your parameters of return and drawdown.
Yes, it's a more relaxed approach, if we can talk about relaxing in trading, of course, because we never know what is going to happen. And obviously, somebody who purchased Bitcoin at the very start would be now a billionaire. But and there might be new tokens going to the stars in the next future, but we don't know which one, and we don't know how it will go from scratch to heaven. So the problem is to sit in the trade or in the investment. Either you buy and forget, that's fine. But if you just want to approach the market, I think that trading is the answer to getting great performance, as Francesco did, and to having a control of what is going on somehow. So you see, we both experimented in different directions. I'm the older guy, so I chose the older small cap approach, which ended up being a disaster for me. Francesco, who is the main sponsor, let's say, inside Unger Academy for cryptocurrencies, directly experimented on cryptos. I did it as well, but I wanted to show Francesco's performance because he is really representing our approach to cryptos. If you look at his equity line, you will also notice his strong belief in this approach, because the first months of the red line are not great, absolutely. They are leading nowhere. So only strongly believing that his approach would end up getting what you see here allowed him to keep on trading, believing in what he was doing based on the backtest, of course. But obviously, when you can have the best backtest in the world, but when you start and you get poor performance, also your beliefs and a commitment start getting worse. Francesco did not stop, and obviously he ended up with this great year. Now, 2022 is new, and crypto markets offer also many other opportunities, not only trading systems. And there is an opening world to the DeFi. There is really a lot to do, still approaching this in an algorithmic way, because we only base our decisions on numbers. So what will be the results? We don't know, but we wait for you in 12 months from now, with a video of the end of 2022, hoping to show you great results and hoping me to show you better results than Francesco.
Yeah, I know. Okay, let me just say that, in my opinion, cryptocurrency is a very interesting topic. There is so much to learn, so much to study, so many opportunities. So my suggestion for the next year for all of you is to try to enter in this market, in this new mentality. And I think that there are plenty of opportunities there. So this is my suggestion for 2022.
That's it, guys. Please leave your comments below and let us know what you did and what you believe you will be doing in 2022. And well, Happy New Year from Andrea Unger, Francesco Placci, and the whole Unger Academy.
Bye.